Charlie Smith, John Benji, Georgia Straight. I'm the editor of the Georgia Straight, and I'm happy to be back for another week with WOW TV. And in Vancouver civic politics, let's just say the silly season has begun. And I say that because we're now officially less than 1 year from the next civic election. So as a result, you're going to see a lot more activism and actions by the political parties as they try to jockey for position to try to take control of Vancouver City Hall in 2014. There are numerous parties out there that are challenging Vision Vancouver, and that actually bodes well for the governing party. Vision is led by Mayor Gregor Robertson. It has 7 members of council. It controls the school board and also controls the park board. But what's happening is the NPA is showing signs of life. It has 2 members of council, George Affleck and Elizabeth Ball, and this is kind of the center-right party in Vancouver municipal politics, and it's controlled City Hall for many years in the past through mayors like Sam Sullivan, Gordon Campbell, Jack Volrich, and dating back for decades. And it's generally the party that is favored by the business community. So there's an expectation that the NPA will have a lot of money in the next campaign upon which to base a campaign. So you're going to see people stepping forward who might be interested in running for office. The other wild card here is the BC Liberals, which are controlling the provincial government, and they have 2 MLAs, Suzanne Anton and Sam Sullivan, who are former NPA politicians. So my expectation is that we're going to see the BC Liberals more interested in winning the election through the NPA at the civic level. In the past, when Gordon Campbell was mayor, he seemed quite happy or quite satisfied with Gregor Robertson. The two seemed to get along. There wasn't a great rivalry. But the problem now for Vision Vancouver is that the current Premier, Christy Clark, she's a little more partisan than Gordon Campbell. And the other issue is the BC Liberals didn't do very well in the last provincial election. They only won 4 of 11 seats in Vancouver. In the past, they'd held 6 seats. They lost Vancouver Fairview, where Dr. Margaret McDermott went down. But more importantly, they lost in Vancouver Point Grey, where Christy Clark was defeated by David Eby. So I think what's happening is that the people who back the BC Liberals are saying enough is enough, and they want to pour a lot of resources into Vancouver municipal politics to try to take control of City Hall, which in turn, they may be feeling that that will help the BC Liberals in the 2017 election, which could be quite hotly contested, especially with the NDP expected to elect a new leader next year, and it could even be a Vancouver MLA if David Eby comes out ahead. So what we're going to be seeing is, the first thing is whether the NPA is going to have a mayoral candidate and who that is. There have been some names and rumors bandied about. Former Park Commissioner Ian Robertson's name has been mentioned in some circles. Another name is Colin Hanson, the former Minister of Finance. It's still quite early. Another person who's been hanging around the NPA is John Furlong, and he's the former CEO of the Olympics. And I've been privately speculating whether Mr. Furlong may want to run for park board for the NPA or something like that to try to help rehabilitate his image while he fights a lawsuit with Laura Robinson. So you've got civic politics heating up, but at the same time, there are a bunch of other parties. There's the Cedar Party, which is a new party that is opposed to the bike lanes. You've also got Jesse Joel and some of his friends, former NPA activist, getting involved in a party, Vancouver First. And then you've got COPE, which is the left-wing party in Vancouver, which in the past has had alliances with Vision Vancouver, but this time around, the board does not want an alliance. And then the question is COPE going to run a candidate for mayor? One of the major figures in COPE is a former city councillor and former park board commissioner named Tim Lewis, and he's always advocated that COPE should have its own mayoral candidate, but at the same time, that if there's an alliance with Vision Vancouver, and that could happen if the board changes then what happens is they tend to rally around Gregor Robertson. But that didn't serve COPE very well in the last election because all three of its council candidates went down to defeat. So this time around, if COPE runs a mayoral candidate, first question is, who's it going to be? And then secondly, will that have any effect on Vision Vancouver? One of the things that happens in Vancouver politics, we're seeing that increasingly in recent years, is that major parties are not always running full slates. There are 10 seats on council. Vision only ran 7 candidates because it didn't want to divide its vote. And that was a successful strategy. It helped Tony Tang get elected. The NPA ran 10 candidates last time. This time, I'm wondering if they're going to shrink their slate a little bit in the hope of concentrating their vote. Because if they had have shrunk their slate the last time, they might have elected another member to council instead of Adrian Carr of the Greens. And Adrian Carr is another one. There's the Green Party, although the Green Party is Adrian Carr in Vancouver. And the other party is Neighbourhoods for Sustainable Vancouver. So it's not out of the question that Neighbourhoods for Sustainable Vancouver, the Green Party, there's a new party, Team, which is kind of a revival of the old Team, which governed the city in the early 70s, and COPE, if they were to reach some sort of alliance where collectively they only run 10 candidates, then they might be able to concentrate their vote and get some of them elected. Now on to other news. The Chinese-Canadian National Council has held a press conference in Toronto, and it's criticizing an American talk show host named Jimmy Kimmel. One of the people who was involved in the news conference was Victor Wong, who's a longtime resident of Vancouver. And Victor was an NDP candidate in the 1990s and used to work at Statistics Canada. And his problem with Jimmy Kimmel is some comments he made during a skit with some children about the trade deficit, the U.S. trade deficit with China, and also how the Chinese government is buying U.S. debt and buying the T-bills and the bonds. And
America owes China a lot of money, $1.3 trillion. How should we pay them back?
Shoot cannons all the way over and kill everyone in China.
Kill everyone in China?
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting idea. Yes.
Put a huge wall so they can't come to us.
You're saying build a wall in China? A huge, great kind of a wall?
Yeah.
That would never happen.
A huge one. So
Allie,
why did you say it?
when you owe someone money, should you pay them back?
Never.
Well, then they won't lend you money anymore.
And that's the problem.
Should this country be forced to pay our own debts?
Yes!
Yeah, but you just said kill everyone in China a little while ago. What happened to that? Should we allow the Chinese to live?
Yes!
But if we don't allow them to live, then they'll try to kill us.
But then they will all be killed.
Right, they're going to all be killed. If we kill them, they won't pay us.
Well, this has been an interesting edition of Kids Table, the Lord of the Flies edition. I'd like to thank my correspondents, Braden, Ava, Braxton, Allie. You've been wonderful. Let's take a gummy break.
And so one of the comments that Jimmy Kimmel made was asking the children, well, should all the Chinese be killed? And would that help deal with the debt problem? Well, Victor Wong has raised concerns about this, and he's complained to the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council against the stations that broadcast the show, because he's saying that basically, even though it was a comedy skit, it was raising the prospect of genocide against the Chinese. So we'll see where that goes, but it is an issue that has been raised and is generating some talk, not as much talk as the talk about Mayor Rob Ford in Toronto.